Singing for Dr. King by Angela Shelf Medeiros. In 1965, Cheyenne Webb was in the 3rd grade in Selma, Alabama. She was smaller than most 3rd graders, including her best friend Rachel West. Rachel was 9. She lived with her family in the apartment next door to Cheyenne's. Cheyenne's family went to church services at Brown Chapel on Sunday mornings. It was just a block away from the Webb's apartment building. One Sunday in January 1965, Cheyenne listened as a special guest speaker spoke. He was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He preached about working together so that African Americans could have the freedom to vote. Dr. King said that he wanted every African American, no matter what color, to enjoy the same rights under the law. These rights are called civil rights. Dr. King believed that voting was one way to change the laws in the South that were unfair to black people. Cheyenne listened as Dr. King's voice thundered through the chapel. His words were powerful and strong. She knew he was right about the way African Americans were treated in Selma. Her oldest sister, Vivian, had marched for civil rights. She had been arrested just for marching. Cheyenne wanted to work for civil rights, just like Vivian. In Selma, it was easy for white people to register to vote. African Americans would sometimes have to stand in line all day trying to register. Selma knew this was not fair. Day after day, hundreds of African Americans lined up to register. Day after day, only a few would be allowed to sign up. But the others did not give up. They kept coming back. For the first time, Cheyenne saw many African Americans working together for their rights. One day when Cheyenne was on her way to school, she saw a crowd at Brown Chapel. What was going on? Cheyenne went inside to see. She was the only child there. The people in the church were planning more marches for voting rights. Someone asked Cheyenne to come to the next meetings and lead the singing. He told Cheyenne that they wanted her to sing freedom songs. Freedom songs are old church songs with some new words added about freedom. Singing freedom songs gave the marchers courage as they walked along. Freedom songs let everyone who was listening know the purpose of the march. Cheyenne was a little afraid. She had never sung before a crowd of people. She was just a little girl. She couldn't register to vote, but she could sing for Dr. King. Singing was something Cheyenne could do to help the civil rights movement. She agreed to be a song leader. Cheyenne told Rachel about the singing for Dr. King. Rachel wanted to go to the meetings and help Dr. King too. That night, Cheyenne and Rachel put on their best dresses. They put ribbons in their hair and then they went to Brown Chapel. Dr. King would be arriving the next morning, January 19th, 1965. He would lead a march for civil rights. More than 800 people filled the church that night. Everyone talked about working peacefully for their rights. You have to be brave not to fight back when someone is fighting against you. Then it was Cheyenne's turn to sing. Cheyenne got up and looked at all those people. She remembered what Dr. King had said about being brave. She was afraid, but she started to sing. Then Rachel got up to sing with her. It's easier to take a stand when someone stands with you. Cheyenne and Rachel sang freedom songs together. Everyone joined in. Cheyenne led the songs during more meetings at Brown Chapel. She led songs during protest marches too. Then, protesters sang with Cheyenne as they marched along the streets and the bridges of Selma. They sang when people called them names. They sang when they were put in jail. The words of the freedom songs made them all feel braver. At first, Cheyenne's mother and father did not want her to march. They were afraid she might get hurt or be put in jail. Her parents were afraid that if they marched, they might lose their jobs. Cheyenne told them that she wanted her family to help Dr. King. One day, Cheyenne's parents asked her what she wanted for her 9th birthday. She said all she wanted was for them to join the marchers and register to vote. The next morning, her parents said they had an early birthday present for her. They were going to march. Cheyenne hugged both of them. Later that day, along with many other marchers, Cheyenne's parents walked to the courthouse to try to register to vote. They sang freedom songs all the way. They sang about marching for civil rights. They sang about getting the right to vote. They sang about being free. I'll keep walking, I'll keep talking, I'll keep marching up to Freedom Land. Millions of people saw the marches on television. They read about them in the newspapers. People came from all over to join the marchers in Selma. Cheyenne and her parents were there, too, on march after march. President Lyndon Baines Johnson got thousands of calls and letters. People were upset about the cruel way the marchers were being treated. They asked them to change the laws. They wanted every American to be treated fairly and equally. Dr. King met with President Johnson on March 5, 1965. He told the president about how badly African Americans were treated in the South. Dr. King asked him to pass the Voting Rights Act. This new law said that every American of every race had the right to vote. On August 6, 1965, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law. Dr. King dreamed of a day when every American would be treated equally. Today, Americans are still working together to make that dream come true. Now, Cheyenne Webb and Rachel West are all grown up. Every 10 years, they meet at Brown Chapel with others who marched with them. They celebrate the freedoms that they worked so hard for as children. They remember the past and honor Dr. King. You can sing for Dr. King too. Your life can sing with good deeds. Your words can sing with kindness. People of all races all over the world still sing for freedom. We can all sing, just as Cheyenne and Rachel did so many, many years ago.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave. And go home to my Lord and be free.